we just went full into this. Like, this is going to work. We have faith in this. Let's get top tier talent. Let's get the production. Let's get the waste. Let's get everything perfectly and spare no expense, because if we could make this work, man, what kind of change can we have in the world on the mental health level, on building these wellness centers, on lowering the barrier of entrepreneurship, providing more jobs. Like, that's the vision of Dirty Dough. And we're just using cookies to get there, because cookies are fun, they're profitable, they're good.
Comfort food, man.
They're comfort food, right?
Food,
but again, that's not what we're after at all, but cookies are just helping us get there.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning into The Thinking Project. This is your host, Dalton Jensen. And if this is your first time tuning in, thank you so much for being here. Make sure that you're subscribed so that you can stay up to date with all the amazing entrepreneurs and business owners that will help you expand your mind and ultimately your business and opportunities. If you're returning, thank you so much. Make sure that you're subscribed, all that good stuff. I have an amazing guest for you today. Bennett Maxwell and Wade Rasmussen, both from Dirty Dough, joined me to sit down to talk about the operations, behind the scenes, and the mission of Dirty Dough. As many of you know, I've had Bennett on before. We talked a little bit about that. We dove a lot into sales in that previous episode. So that'll be linked somewhere around here, so you can check that out if you're into sales and Dirty Dough. But today, we learned all about Dirty Dough and how it works. So if that's something you're interested in, stay tuned. If you're interested just in entrepreneurship, stay tuned, because it's an amazing episode. With all that being said, and without further ado, Bennett Maxwell and Wade Rasmussen, thank you so much for tuning in. All right, guys. Well, Bennett, welcome back to The Thinking Project. Wade, nice to have you here.
Thank you.
We're actually at your guys' new warehouse in Linden. We're at the new warehouse in Linden because I work for you now.
Warehouse.
That's
bro.
right. Our new warehouse. We're getting back on to kind of go into Dirty Dough a little bit deeper, because last time Bennett and I just talked about sales, but we got in a little bit of Dirty Dough. But let's just start from the beginning. So, how did Dirty Dough get started? What was the goal behind it? All that good stuff, Bennett.
Yeah, 3 years ago. So 2019, beginning of 2019, I was looking at getting a crumble franchise. I was like, cookies, never thought about it before, but I had a cousin in it. And I'm like, I'm going to explore it. And I started exploring it up until the point that I found out that it was owner operated only. And I thought, wait a second, like, I wanted to add to my income. I didn't want to replace my income, especially considering that I was making decent money. And I'm like, well, this is just a trade-off, you know? So I turned down the opportunity to be a franchise because I looked at buying a franchise that you have to run full time as owning your own job. It's a great model for some people, but that's not my belief. But it got me interested in cookies. Dirty Dough was founded by a guy that I went to high school with. And he posts on Facebook, hey, I have a cookie company. I do online orders only out of my apartment, and I want some money to open up an actual storefront. So I'm like, boom, there's a passive opportunity for me. I invested with him. He opened up a storefront in March of 2020. I just moved to San Diego. I started a solar company just a few months prior. And then Crumble opened up there, and they were crushing it in Point Loma, lines out the doors around the corner. You know, heard a rumor that they were on track to do $3 million. I'm like, that is stupid for a cookie company. Tyler, let's get a Dirty Dough out in San Diego. I'm your guy. I'm going to franchise it. And long story short, he didn't want to franchise it. He was burnt out, wanted to move back to Utah, and he wanted to sell it. So at that point, I think I just had listened to a podcast, and it was talking about true wealth and financial freedom is made through investing in real estate and businesses.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I have maybe a handful of rental properties at the time. Never bought a business though. So I kind of like, let's give it a go. And the goal with it was I'm in San Diego running a solar company full time. And here I have a cookie company, and this was out of Tempe, Arizona, never been in food. If I can buy this and run it from out of state without any prior experience while running another business, then man, isn't that a good model? How many other people would buy into that model? So that's how I jumped into Dirty Dough, bought it in the beginning of January 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And just immediately went to work on making it as simple as possible.
That's sweet. And then you kind of mentioned it, but the question that I had is like, why would somebody choose to franchise instead of like, and like, why did you franchise instead of like expanding, right? Because like, there's a few companies, food companies, who just like, you know, they'll have their GM open it, right? Versus like franchise.
The franchise model allows you to expand more quickly.
Okay.
Because you can get good, I guess, partnerships, right? They're paying you for the franchise, and paying for the cost, and then they're running it, and you're just providing the support.
Which is a great model, by the
Well,
way.
yeah, I mean, it's a win-win, right? We
Yeah.
we provide support, which again, at the time, I wasn't the guy to provide the support, but we'll get into it. We kind of
Yeah,
quickly built the
yeah.
team, and it was really kind of dumbing it down so anyone can do it. And I'll get to it a little bit later, but one of the goals is to lower the barrier of entry to entrepreneurship.
Mm,
To be an entrepreneur, you need a game plan, you need time, expertise, and money. Well, that's what a franchise is here's a game plan that's worked for other people. The time required to run one of these stores is a lot less because we don't require owner operated. The expertise to run one of these stores is a lot less because we do a centralized production model, right? Which we'll get into a little bit. And the money required is about half or less than half of the competition. So, how do we make it as simple as possible? And it was identifying the pain points, waste, and labor. That's what I was dealing
mhm,
with. And we had three areas of waste that were really large. The raw ingredient waste. So I order blueberries, and what do I do with my leftover blueberries after that cookie rotation is gone? Well, you throw them away. There's nothing else. It's not going to last 3 months till the next rotation. Then you have your raw ingredient waste, or sorry, your mixing waste, meaning I have teenagers mixing the dough and they mess up. All right. Did they pack the flour? Did they scoop it? Did they leave air bubbles? How long did they mix it for? What speed of the all these things that I thought was just like follow the recipe, but no, even if you follow the recipe, apparently you can still mess things up. And they would mess up a batch at a time, several times a week. You're just throwing away the whole thing. And at the end of the night, what do you do with your leftover cookies? You throw them away.
yeah.
Now on the labor side, we're mixing 60 to 70 cookies at a time in a 40-quart mixer. Not that small batches. That takes a lot of labor. Then we are going into and you get a bin of dough and you just weigh it for 5 hours. Like you're just grabbing the dough, you put it on a scale, little piece of dough till it weighs just right. You're gonna roll it on the counter, form it by hand, put on the cookie sheet. And that, man, even paying minimum wage in Arizona, $12.15 an hour, like that was eating up like 5% of our gross margin, just weighing it. So I'm like, okay, I know I need to figure out the waste and the labor. Now it was kind of how do we do that?
Yeah. That's crazy. And Wade, you're
Yeah.
new. How did you get involved with Dirty Dough?
So I actually met Bennett through a mutual friend. It's our VP of production, Josh Steele, and just mutual friend. He knew I had actually looked into doing a crumble franchise. I had actually looked into Twisted Sugar and a couple other options. I had heard how well these cookie franchises do, and decided I wanted to look into it. And he connected me with Bennett, and
Mhm.
he just said, "Hey, I've got a buddy who's doing some dirty dough or some cookie shops. It's called Dirty Dough." And so at first I thought I was just going to be a franchisee, and I was planning on opening 3 stores. And when Bennett and I met, I felt like we had a very kind of similar, we're very task oriented. We were getting stuff done really well together. And he put the opportunity in front of me to allow me to buy in as a partner. And I jumped at the opportunity. And honestly, it really was at that time, the reason I wanted to jump in on it is because the efficiency was there.
Mhm.
And so the thing that really got me sold on it was I went down to Tempe, Arizona, where that store was, and saw the balling machine that was there.
Mhm.
Because up to that point, it was really impressive the different kinds of cookies they were doing, because I wanted to get in on something that was different, that was better, that was special. When I was looking for an opportunity with a cookie franchise or cookie company, the thing that really did seem the most labor intensive, most tedious, was the balling all of the cookie dough by hand. You go into one of those shops and you've got however many teenagers, 3 or 4 or 5, just standing there balling cookie dough for hours and hours. And so when I went and saw the balling machine, it just cranked these cookie dough balls out, and they were the exact same size, the exact same shape every single time. They could do fillings, they could do multiple layers. It created a unique product, but more
Holy
than
crap.
anything, it saved a ton of money. And that was, the dollar signs went off in my eyes, and I thought, oh my gosh, the profitability. And then what you can do is you can take that money that you're saving by saving all of that labor cost. You can put it in so many other things. You can put it into, obviously it ups your return, your percentage of profitability, but you can put it into ad spend. You can open more stores. There's just no end to the amount of things you can do because your profitability has just increased.
Mhm.
But not only that, with that balling machine, you are creating a product nobody else can really copy.
Yeah. What stores are you part of?
So I started the Vineyard store and the Pleasant Grove store. Yes,
That's
sir.
awesome. So now this is a question everybody asks, right? Are cookies a fad?
Our answer to that is the cookie model is not new at all. So you take Mrs. Fields cookies, Great American cookies, Insomnia cookies.
Mhm.
Mrs. Fields and Great American have been around for 45, 50 years. Insomnia cookies has been around for 20 plus years. So it's really nothing new. Recently, there's been a big explosion, especially here in Utah, because several of them were founded here in Utah, but they've been around a long time. So is there a bit of a lot of hype right now? Yes, but it's not a fad because they've been around since the 1970s.
Yeah, what do you think, Bennett?
I would say we're in a cookie craze, not a cookie fad. Like yeah, both of those companies started in 77. They still have multiple hundred locations. There's ups and downs, right? Just like anything. Um, but looking at where we're at right now, we are in a cookie craze. The competition is just destroying it. Crumble, particularly, they're doing a really good job. They released their franchise disclosure documents for 2021. They had 115 stores reporting, and their average store did 1,687,000. Like what?
Yeah, that's insane,
That's
man.
insane, right? The high store did 3.6 million, and the low store still did, I think it was 734,000. Now I'm pretty dang accurate with all my numbers, but go online and check me, right? And it's like, wow, that's an incredible model. But me personally, I don't think that's gonna last. What I'm looking for is a model that can be passed down generation to generation, creating generational wealth, right? And I mean, that's what Mrs. Fields have had franchisees for 45 years. Like, that's cool, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
you're
is really
passing
cool.
down a store to somebody else. And how do they last for so long? Well, they have the centralized model, right? They have the balling machine, things like that. So we looked at these two models. You have Crumble that has these gourmet, multi-flavored cookies. And then you have Mrs. Fields, Great American Cookie, that have kind of a plain cookie, but
Mhm.
they operate out of small square footage. They have, lower cost of goods, low labor, all due to centralized production. So the challenge was, well, can we take the robust model of the centralized production, but still get a cookie that competes in the gourmet, multi-flavored space? And
Mhm.
that's what this machine did. We could do a 3-layer cookie. Nobody knows what a 3-layer cookie is because they don't exist. You look at a cookie and it looks like a peanut butter cookie because it's peanut butter dough. Then you break it open, there's chocolate dough in the middle, and then there's hot fudge in the very center. Or we do another one that's brownie dough, and then chocolate chip in the middle with caramel. It's like, where are you
And
gonna get that?
there's the one with the marshmallow in the middle.
Oh,
We
yeah.
do a lot with marshmallow. I mean,
That's freaking
what we
sick.
do, like we have the s'mores cookie right now,
Yeah.
right? You have brown sugar dough cookie, and then you have a chocolate cookie in the middle,
Yeah.
and in the very center you have marshmallow.
Yep.
And it's like,
That's
that's
freaking
cool,
good, yeah.
right? So it gives us that more unique product. And another thing I want to touch on with the balling machine, now greatly reduced labor, but one of the biggest things on top of reducing labor was it also gave us, I mean, where's the turnover happening in restaurants, right? It's those tedious jobs that you're just
Yeah.
constantly working for hours on end. And that was the baller position that you just balled dough for 5 hours. Once we got rid of that, the turnover went super, super low. That means no more ads pushing them out, right? To hire people. That means no more interviewing, no more training, or I should say less, not no more, right? Um, Less uniform expenses. So it's much more than just less labor. There's so much more that goes into it that
Yeah.
increase the profitability while giving us a more unique product. So, anyways, definitely think we're in a cookie craze. Don't think we're in a cookie fad. But to serve our franchisees the best, I mean, man, that would be my worst nightmare as a franchisee comes in, they don't succeed and they're losing money on this, right? I want to deliver what I'm selling on them. And how do we deliver that? Well, we need a model that we just have a really low break even point, right? So
Yeah.
when sales aren't doing 1,687,000 on average, are we profitable at 750,000? Are we profitable at 500,000? And that's what we really needed to create. And that centralized production was definitely key to
Yeah.
centralize everything.
I like that. And since you've been in the stores, Wade, tell us about like how that break even point is lowered. Like, what does that look like in real time?
Well, and that's the genius of the model is with the centralized production, it's eliminated so much of the labor costs. So what I've seen in the stores is there's three basic positions. One is someone working the cashier, the register, someone being the baker and getting cookies in and out of the oven, and then another person decorating. And so you compare that to a traditional cookie store model.
Or even like a crumble.
Yeah.
Where you walk in, there's like 10 of them on the floor, dude.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in lots of different cookie shops, they'll
Yeah.
have so many employees in there working. And in our model, because they're basically moving the cookie dough from the freezer to the oven to the decoration station or to the warmer if there's not a customer right there.
So Wade, tell us how that lower break-even point works in your store. Like, because there's a lot of ways that you can do it. You know, obviously, they had mentioned leasing and labor.
Yeah.
So dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah. So first of all, with the lease, most cookie shops are going to require 2,000 square feet or more because they're going to be mixing all the dough, stocking all the inventory, the flour, the sugar, the eggs, the butter. It just requires a lot more space. Not only that, they have a lot more employees working there at any given time. So you need more space for the employees. In our model, generally, we're going to be doing 1,000 to 1,200 square feet. So it's about half the size in most cases. So the lease cost is cut in half right then and there. So it gets rid of a lot of that cost is what it gets rid of a lot of that cost. The next biggest thing is labor, because rather than needing 10 to 12 employees in there mixing the dough, balling the dough, doing all the labor intensive steps to get flour and sugar and the raw goods to the point where it's a cookie you're ready to hand to the customer, we're cutting out most of that process by having pre-made dough in the store. And the beautiful thing about it is the customer gets the exact same experience. They walk into the store, they get a fresh baked cookie, and the dough is actually going from the exact same spot. In all of the other cookie shops, they're pre-making the dough, but when it's finished, it goes into the fridge or the freezer until it's ready to be brought back out and baked. So it starts from the exact same position in our stores as well. We're just centralizing the production and then getting that out to the stores.
Mhm.
So it eliminates all the labor, it cuts the lease cost in half, and then it also eliminates a ton of the waste because
Yeah.
we don't have to worry about some high school kid putting in salt instead of sugar and ruining an entire batch.
That would be
It
or
happened.
a, or
That's
a
a real
nail
example.
or a
It really
nail.
would.
I saw that on TikTok.
screw?
Yeah.
The screw. That's
Exactly.
right, dude. How bananas.
We literally have a metal detector that we're installing in this new facility. And I'm like, why would we need a metal detector? And then I see there's a screw in a cookie. I was like, that's why.
That was yeah, it went viral on TikTok. I remember that.
Yeah.
that was bananas. And so with that, like, you know, the lower break even point, I know a big contributing factor to that is the centralized production, right? I know that like a lot of other companies have kind of gone towards that, or what do you think?
Yeah. So
Bennett, go ahead.
you have, it's kind of like if shit hits the fan, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Right. If 2008 hits again, what's going to happen? Our cookie sales aren't going to be at 1.5 million. They're not going to be at 1 million. How do we weather that storm?
Yeah.
Well, can we operate with one employee? Yes, we can operate 100% with one employee.
Yeah.
And then you have a small lease payment, right? Like, the average is 1,000 to 1,200. Wade just opened a store last week, 725 square feet,
Yep.
$1,800 a month. Like, talking
That's
about
nothing,
lowering the
yeah.
risk.
Yeah.
There you go. And then the waste. So comparing the two models, we order a truckload of flour, sugar, butter at a time rather than a 50-pound sack, right?
Mhm.
So that's a 10+% discount. Then rather than going through US Foods, Dawn Foods, Cisco, we go directly to the flour, sugar, or butter manufacturer, another 10+% off. So reasonably, we're getting 20% off on our main ingredients compared to the competition. Then rather than mixing 60 to 70 cookies at a time, we mix 1,000 plus at a time. Rather than using a teenager, we use a highly trained and experienced baker. Rather than balling it by hand and having a very inconsistent product that's typically plain, again, you can't do a 3-layer cookie by hand.
Right.
You can't do tons of fillings by hand. There are companies that try to do fillings and you just can't do it.
It's tough.
You can do it, but if you get a lot of filling in there, it's very, very difficult, where we can put way more filling in our product because it's the machine. Now, go to any cookie company, order a dozen cookies, weigh them all. They all weigh different. So as an owner of a cookie shop, how do you control your cost of goods? So, I mean, it's just a much different experience having everything portioned by machine with professional bakers with lower cost of goods and then shipped to the store.
Mhm.
And then so now again, what's the worst case scenario? Well, you have way less waste coming back in the full loop, right? I said that we had 3 areas of waste. Your raw ingredient waste, well, that's completely eliminated in this model because you don't carry raw ingredients.
Mhm.
You're, oh crap, my 18-year-old employee just messed up a batch of cookies. We have to throw that away. 100% eliminated because you're not mixing any cookies, right? The third area of waste was we throw away cookies at the end of the night. Well, we already had a really good product that you put a warm cookie in a bowl with cold ice cream on top. Pairs really well. So it's like, well, we already have ice cream. We already have toppings. We already have cookies. How about we use the leftover cookies in a shake? And then we found a really easy shake machine. Rather than a blender, it's just a cup, right? That you're blending the day-old cookie with ice cream with a little bit of milk. And at any given time, we have 16 flavors of shakes,
Yeah.
chocolate, vanilla, plus 8 cookie flavors. And now we can repurpose most of the used cookies and almost eliminate, or I should say, greatly reduce that last area of waste.
Yeah.
Um, so, and then the labor coming full scoop on that, obviously there is no more mixing. So there's no more labor for that. And there's no more hand balling anything. So like the entire operations of the store, and cause we've had you work in there.
Yeah, dude.
You
For
walk
real.
in, you find a metal thing that's called a speed rack. It carries cookie sheets and it has wheels on the bottom. You wheel it into the walk-in cooler. You grab 15 cookies, place them 3x5 on your pan, on your cookie sheet, roll it out, put it in the oven, press start. Right now, I mean, the oven's already pre-programmed, time, temperature, fan speed. Once the timer goes off, take out the cookies.
Cookies are done.
How do you mess that up? I mean, maybe you trip on the way, right? Maybe somebody pushes you. Maybe you sneeze on the cookies. But I don't know. There's not many things you can do to mess up this process, right? Once they're done, they sit in a warmer for the next hour or so till a customer comes and eats them. So you're just boxing them. But like it really is super, super simple. And with the goal of one, making it as consistent as possible, but two, when this cookie craze dies down, are we profitable? Can we run the store with 1 employee, 2 employees, 3 employees, right? And yes, we can. We've proven that, and we've been doing that.
Yeah, that's insane. And that's just part of like that. To me, that's what I loved about Dirty Dough. Like when I first learned about it too, when we met on the podcast the first time, was how simple it was. And my thing has always been, because I've been in like sales and stuff, is like simple doesn't mean easy, but in this case, it almost does. You know what I mean? Like simple does mean pretty freaking easy. You know what I mean? And you still got to run a business, but why wouldn't you want to get your feet wet with a business like this? You know what I'm saying? And especially when you have the team, right? Like, hold on, let me see here. Oh yeah, Bennett, tell us about the team, man.
So we started kind of the big pivot point of Dirty Dough is I just sold my solar company last year, and feeling on top of the world, grew a company, sold it 18 months, and then somebody invites me to the startup course. I'm like, startup course?
Yeah, that's right. The one in Provo?
Lehigh.
Lehigh. Okay.
I think they do in Provo too. Anyways, and I'm like, well, I don't need a startup course. Like, no, good thing I remembered that I'm an idiot and I decided to go. So I'm like, okay, I'm an idiot. Remember that, go. So I went and I learned a ton, and I learned what an advisory board was by a guy that started a company called InfoSpace. His name's John Richards. Lots of different companies, but that was his first big company. Took that public. It was valued at over 30 billion at its peak. And he's teaching me like how to grow a company like that. And I'm like, who better to run an advisory board than the guy teaching you how to run an advisory board? So I approached him. I'm like, dude, this is what we're doing. We have, a lot of interest already. We have a great model. He's like, I've never been in food. I'm typically a tech guy. I only accept to be on the advisory board of 2 or 3 companies at a time, but I'll give you guys a shot. So I'm like, yes, we landed John Richards. Like he's done not just InfoSpace, but he's hit a lot of other early stage advisors / investors that have sold for hundreds of millions to multiple $1 billion. I'm like, we need him. Then he brings in Steve Hart, who owns Property Management Inc., largest property management franchise in the nation, which is super cool. Like he just texted me over the weekend, hey, you and Wade should come to Scottsdale. We have several hundred franchisees coming. You can see a 3-day event, because you guys are going to be running one of these next year. And it's like super cool, right? Like do we don't have to do anything for the first time per se, right? It's the first time for Dirty Dough. And then we brought on the last advisor is Eric Van Horn. He's got the largest franchise podcast.
So sick.
Eric's awesome. Franchise Secrets. And then he also owns the largest franchisor mastermind group, largest franchisee mastermind group, one of the top brokers in the nation. Like you can't find a guy with more experience in the franchising and like more well-known than Eric. So we brought him on as well. Anyway, so we built a really good advisory board, and now let's go get the team. So Wade came on really about the same time that Jill came on, right? You were involved a little bit earlier, but I'll let you talk about the corporate team.
Yeah. Because I got involved pretty early on, but again, I thought I was going to be just a franchisee. But there's so much work to be done. And so I kind of just started pitching in and helping here and there. And that was pretty soon thereafter is when Bennett put the opportunity in front of me to let me buy in as a partner. But obviously you can have the best model in the world. It can be easy. It can be profitable. that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be able to make it happen. You have to be able to execute. So we saw really early on the importance of putting together the correct team. And that's something Bennett's been super awesome about, is recruiting the right people. And we really needed experts in all the different facets of our organization, because really we're not so much a bakery. People think dirty dough and they think cookies, they think cookie shop, bakery. To be honest, there's really a lot of elements of manufacturing that would describe dirty dough better. And so right off the bat, we needed somebody who's been there, done that, who has been in franchising, who has grown a company on a large scale. And so that person was Jill Summerhays. We got in contact with her and basically reached out to her and offered to let her run the company, because we needed somebody who's done it before. And so we offered her the CEO position, which somehow by some miracle she accepted. I still am like, I have no idea how we got her, because she, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to go over her background, but you're
Yeah, no, she has an amazing resume. She created a brand called Maui Wowie, took it from 0 franchises to over 680 franchises over the course of about 20 years. But she sold that to a brand called Kahala Brands just recently. And they're the same one that bought out Cold Stone Ice Cream. So she knows what it's like to take franchise from 0 franchises to almost 1,000 franchises, and then sell that off and be really successful with it. She also was a part of another franchise called Totally Nuts. She was doing some consulting, and then Totally Nuts basically offered to let her run their company as well. And so that's who we poached her from. So I feel bad for Totally Nuts, but I'm extremely happy that we got her, because again, she knows how to steer the ship.
Yeah.
But obviously, like I said, we need experts in all the different areas. So overproduction, Josh Steele, who's actually the person who connected Bennett and I, but he has been working for a company that just recently started a foods division in their company. And in 2 years, a little bit less than 2 years, he took them from having absolutely no revenue, because they didn't even have a foods division, to just under 70 million gross, and built out their entire system, their process, ran it for them. And so one of the top guys you can find in production. And then he introduced us to a guy named Ivan, who is going to be our VP of shipping and logistics. He, over the last decade or so, has been running his own shipping and logistics company, which does 50 million.
Yeah, they did 50 million last year. Like, already has channels nationwide.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Huge networks. And so he runs all of the shipping and how we're going to get the cookie dough from the warehouse to the franchisees, because really the success of our model depends on our ability to produce the cookie dough in a cost-effective way and to ship that cookie dough to the franchisees. And we have some of the best guys you can possibly find to do that for us.
Mhm.
And then another huge need we had was franchise support, because we got to make sure that our franchisees are having a good experience. They're able to build out their stores in a cost-effective way and get them open and do that quickly. And so we have Melissa Bolt, who actually worked with Jill for about 10 years at Maui Wowie, was her VP of operations. And we brought her in to be franchise support. So we have an excellent team. We have an awesome model, but now we have the team to execute that model and really make it happen.
Yeah, I like that. And by the way, Jill is a beast.
She's awesome.
She's ruthless, and I love
the
it.
best.
She's awesome, man. Holy cow. And then with that too, like with having a good team, I think it's important for the franchisees to know, when I did a couple of my sales, when we did this at first, we went to that welcome call.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had like almost every welcome call we have, right? We have like Jill, Melissa, Ivan, we got everybody on there, the team. There's like 10 of us on there. And every time we get on there, every franchisee is always like, dude, I can't believe, we've had people who've come from other franchises, who own other franchises, non-food related, come in our welcome call. And they're like, I haven't seen this at even the franchise I'm with right now.
Yeah.
Not having that welcome call and just knowing that support's there.
I mean, it takes years and decades to build out something like this, right?
Yeah.
We're into this literally a year, but Jill's been doing it for 39 years. Melissa's been doing it for a decade.
Yep.
Ivan's been doing it for decades. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then our advisor, same thing. Like, let's hire people that have been there, done that we want to hire to where we're going rather than where we're at.
Yeah.
So it was a little backwards, right? You usually kind of scale slowly, but we're like, man, this is such a good opportunity. People are going to come in. There's going to be competitors. But let's raise that barrier of entry to those competitors by investing heavily. I mean, we're into this over $2 million before we even had a franchise open.
Wow.
Because It's not just, hey, I have a concept. Here's my branding. Go do it yourself. It's like,
Yeah.
I need a production facility. I need heavy machines and large mixers. I need trucks, right?
Yeah.
We need logistics figured out. We need, and we just wanted to do it the right way the first time. So yeah, people come on from other franchises, and I mean, I would say go find any brand that has 100 stores open that has a more experienced team than us, right? That'd be hard to
Right.
do.
Yeah.
And even though we only have 5 stores open right now, we have a team that can support, the goal is 1,000 franchises. So
Yeah.
right now, I think we're at like around 175 franchises sold. We're into it 9 months, I think, and they're just, I mean,
Yeah,
you know more than me.
man. Holy cow, it's been a war. I haven't worked this hard since my freaking car days, man.
You've been on to 6, 7 weeks now.
Yeah. At the time of this recording,
and done how many stores?
Dude, like 35, 40, something like
crazy.
that. It's
Yeah.
banana.
And
Usually
how
that's what a
many-
salesperson will do in 2
Well,
years.
yeah,
with a
we're talking,
franchise.
to,
You've
we're
done
talking
it
to Steve,
less
some of
than-
their guys' quotes. I'm like, quotas. I'm
yeah.
like, whenever it burns out here, I go to see Steve. Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Well, and we've had, I mean, a ridiculous amount of inquiries too lately.
Hundreds.
The momentum is
Hundreds.
crazy.
Yeah.
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 Well,
You can. to tell people all the time, like, you can't pay for this kind of publicity that we've had lately, man.
Yeah, so I mean,
It's been
let's touch on
bananas.
that.
Yeah.
We're getting sued by Crumble.
Yeah, that's right.
I've
That's
been like
right.
Crumble's biggest fan. I've been on freaking dozens of podcasts. Like, Crumble's the best. They have such a good model. And now I'm like,
And then you get
if you
slapped with
actually
the
analyze
lawsuit.
their numbers,
And then
I don't think
you get
it's
slapped
here to
with it.
stay. But who cares? They're a great brand. But they're suing us. They don't like that we use a rectangular box. They don't like we do rotating flavors. The whole lawsuit's a joke. Call me about it. I'd love to talk about it.
Yeah.
I mean, we did some billboards and some billboards wars with them. And I'm telling you, 50 personal messages from LinkedIn every day, because I post and it gets hundreds of thousands of views. And just because we're in the spotlight right now, and so many attorneys reach out and they're just like, you have nothing to worry about. Like, they don't have you can't trademark. Anyways, I don't want to get into the lawsuit. I just wanted to mention what we were talking about.
Right.
The lawsuit's been very helpful for us. We've sold, I mean, people are seeing we're getting sued and like, oh, that doesn't bother me. I want to buy 5 franchises. And our average franchise is in the low 200,000. So like, they're coming in with like, I think this lawsuit's bogus and here's $1 million that I'm betting on it.
Yeah.
And it's like, cool. Thanks for believing in us,
Yeah.
And that's how we've grown so fast. Like, I mean, 175 locations that we've sold is pretty rare, but I think people are looking at, man, this is a cool model. We're lowering the risk for them as much as possible by investing in them up front, where other companies, again, nobody else is investing $2 million before you start up a brand, but we are, because we want it to be a seamless experience for them. Not saying it will be, right? We're going to have hiccups, and we have hiccups. We're still a startup, but we want to mitigate as much as possible as we can. And that people are really jumping in, and these are qualified buyers. They, one group owns 100 plus franchises already, and they're coming in. A lot of other people, they own a dozen franchises here or whatever, because they're just seeing this as a really, really good model. And we've gotten very lucky to have very quality franchises to sign up with us.
And that's what I was going to touch on too, is it was interesting to see from the very beginning, a lot of franchisees were kind of the friends and family, personal network. We met them and they want to do 1 or 2 franchises. As we've gotten all this exposure, as we've added members of the corporate team, we've expanded the warehouse capabilities, the production capabilities. As we've actually opened stores and had a proof of concept, our stores have been doing incredibly well. And we've seen that not only the quantity of franchise inquiries coming in, but the quality as well. We have these people wanting to come in and do 5, 10, 15 franchises. We've had people ask about securing the rights to an entire state, wanting to do 100 franchises. I mean, it's crazy.
And there's a lot like that. A lot of people wanted to buy the entire states. Wyoming and freaking
Hawaii,
which is smaller, Hawaii, Texas,
Florida,
Michigan.
Someone who wants to do 100, get the rights to 100 in the Midwest area, Indianapolis. And it really is because, I mean, and the crazy thing is we saw it from, everyone saw the great team, saw the great model. Everyone was kind of waiting for a little bit of a proof of concept to see if we could open. The Vineyard store was the first one we opened, to see if we could open that, deliver in a timely manner, in a cost-effective way, and to see if it would actually go well. And it went really, really well.
Yeah.
Which all of a sudden you see all these billboards from our, from our good friends over at Crumble pop up all over I-15. But really what it did was it proved the model, and it showed that this really is the real deal, and the momentum caught. And now we have all these all these different inquiries coming in from
Yeah.
really amazing groups. But honestly, a lot of it too, it's been super cool to see it from the momentum standpoint of,
Mhm.
the store was super successful and it's done really well, but we have a lot of really cool messaging behind it. We have a lot of really, really cool things that Dirty Dough is standing for. Bennett's done an incredible job at getting a lot of awareness out there and getting a lot of people on board.
Yeah, tell us about the mission behind Dirty Dough. I know you wanted to
Yeah,
touch
so
on that.
about the same time I was looking into Crumble, I came across a podcast by Jonathan Haidt. He's talking. He's doing the correlation, talking about the correlation between um, social media, depression, anxiety, self harm. And
Yeah,
he's like,
isn't he the author of The Coddling of the American Mind? Is that who it
yes,
is? Okay, cool. Yeah, go
yeah.
ahead.
So
Go ahead.
he's being interviewed, and I see this graph pop up on the screen, and he goes, sometimes people say, oh well, this rising anxiety and depression is just because we're comfortable talking about it. Can be attributed to that, not social media. And he goes, well, what about the hospitalization rates? Like people going into the hospital because they harmed themselves. It went up from 2010 to 2015 in young girls. It's like 6 to 12, something like very young. It went up 189%. And it's
Mhm.
like, what? I have a 2-year-old daughter at the time. I have a newborn daughter. What do you do? Like nobody knows that their child's dealing with something. So it just scared me. I didn't know what to do. Year later, I had a family member in 6th grade, elementary school, had a suicide attempt. And it's just like, what? I didn't know what suicide was when I was in 6th grade.
Mhm.
Another big shock. And then my daughter starts watching YouTube, a really good YouTube channel, just a dad playing with his daughter. But very quickly, like within a matter of weeks, it's already, hey, daddy, I want what this person has. Daddy, this person got to go here. Daddy, this person's dad took him. And I'm like, well, that's not real. Like, do you see that
Yeah.
girl's fighting with her siblings? Do you see her getting put in timeout? Do you see her crying? Like, it's not real. And that's what his point was, is happiness is expectations versus reality. Our expectations keeps going higher because I see Dalton on Instagram and Dalton lives the perfect Instagram life.
Right.
But my reality is the same. So now you look like where I should be, but I'm not there. And I'm going to be depressed. I'm going to be anxious about it. I'm not doing what other people are doing. And it just, man, it's just killing the mental health of our youth. And again, this came out pretty much after us, right? This
Mhm.
was a lot later when it went widespread. But that's the big thing, is like, how do we get in front of people and teach them to be proactive rather than reactive on their mental health? Well, dirty dough means the dough's dirty. Why? Because we have more mix-ins, we have more fillings, we do 2-layer cookies, 3-layer cookies. And it's like, and it's the opposite of the competition, right? Crumble is the Instagram cookie. It has to look perfect. And I'm like, life's not perfect. Why would we make a perfect looking cookie? Life is dirty, it's messy, and it's imperfect, but it can be enjoyed that way. These cookies are dirty, messy, and imperfect, but I promise you they taste freaking good.
Oh, yeah, heck
And it's
yeah, they
supposed
do,
to
man.
spread that message of don't wait for perfection. So, kind of going overall vision of Dirty Dough. Mission statement is to find joy and fulfillment despite life's dirtiness in ourselves and others. We want to be happy, we want to be fulfilled. Fulfillment typically comes from contributing to something larger than ourselves. Despite life's dirtiness is don't wait for you to sell the company. Don't wait for the next promotion. Don't wait for XYZ to happen to be happy and fulfilled. It can be had now. Focus on yourself first and then focus on as many people as possible. So that's primary goal of Dirty Dough. We pay for this program for all of our employees. And as corporate, we even pay like for Wade's franchisees
Mhm.
to be part of this mental health um, kind of proactive guiding. I mean, they can get on there, they can learn what therapy is because most people are scared. Like they don't know what it is,
Mhm.
right? They can see what it is and then they can schedule a call, but they can kind of ease their way in it. They can start doing meditation, guided meditation, happiness mindset, breathing exercises. They can get a coach about finances, right? About sleeping better, about fitness, about exercising. And it's like, let's get these employees. We know these are teenagers, right? They're not going to be with us forever, nor do we want them to. But in the 1 to 3 years that they're with us, let's improve their lives and make them better people, better members of society. So that's how we're focusing on the mental health on that aspect of our employees. And then kind of a general public one is the messaging. Dirty dough, we know
Mhm.
what's on the inside matters most. Like go in there. That's
Yeah.
what our store says. That's what our box says.
Yeah.
One says life's messy and that's okay. Right. Proudly unique inside and out, perfectly imperfect, in touch with our feelings,
Yeah, I
but
saw
like
that.
cookie feelings.
Yeah, when I was at the St. George location, it was
Like
all
it's
over.
all
It was
these,
great.
yeah, that one says we care about your feelings.
Yeah.
It's cute, it's fun, but it has a message behind
Yeah,
it.
but it's for real.
And it's for
Yeah.
real. So that's what we're doing. And then we're converting old classrooms in K through 12 schools into wellness centers. And a wellness center, going back to coddling the American mind, it's not a safe space. Like, yeah, you're safe in there, but it's not about avoiding the dangers in life and avoiding the bullies and avoiding all of that.
Yeah.
As soon as you leave this wellness center, right, you're gonna get your teeth kicked in. How do we help you do that? So, how do you change your physiological state through breathing?
Hmm.
What is anxiety? It's focusing on something that hasn't happened yet, probably won't happen. So,
Yeah.
how do we be present? Well, let's do some guided meditation, maybe, right? And there's just different things you can do
Yeah.
that I practice and have bettered my life that I never knew existed as a kid. So that's what these wellness centers are. And for every franchise that we open, we want to open up one wellness center. And we're planning on funding those through corporate, through the franchisee, through the schools, sending business, doing a fundraiser night, doing
Mhm.
Amazon wish list. Like we have the program built out. But we want to make a much bigger impact than just let's sell cookies. It actually, I mean, our mission statement has nothing to do with cookies.
Yeah.
We're not after making the world's best cookie. Like we want a good product, but really what we're after is spreading the message of being proactive with mental health with the intention and hope that people can be happier and more fulfilled in life. And then the secondary goal is lowering the barrier of entry to entrepreneurship. I've always been an entrepreneur and I love it. I control my own hours. I do what I want to do. I work hard. I'm passionate about it. Um, what do you need to be an entrepreneur? You need a game plan, you need time, expertise, and you need money. The game plan, this is the franchise model. We're giving you that. The money we're required, again, I kind of went over this before, but we're
Yeah.
half the cost because we don't need the mixers. We don't need the space.
Right.
We don't need a lot of those things that the competitors need. So we can open these up for half the cost. I mean, through an SBA loan, some of our franchisees are coming in with 30, 40, 50 grand and having a cash flowing business. And it's like, that's really cool that
Yeah.
we gave you that. We partnered with you to have that more like,
Right.
but it's like we created that model and it's working for people. And that's really cool. So to not have to own your own job, keep doing what you're doing as long as you know how to run a business, then this is one of the most simple businesses you're going to find. So let's get more people
Yeah.
involved in entrepreneurship that otherwise wouldn't have been in entrepreneurship. I mean, that's cool to me. Like
Yeah.
providing more jobs and helping other people provide more jobs to other people.
Well, and to bring what you said before, right? Like another big thing of entrepreneurship is either like an exit or scalability,
Mhm.
right? And like you can either exit a dirty dough, but like you mentioned earlier, Bennett, it's so much easier to scale because if you're like, hey, in 6 months, you're like, man, I like this, it's working.
Let's do another one.
You call up Dalton,
Yeah.
and I'll get you another one.
While
but that's
supplies last.
right. While supplies
Exactly.
last. But like that's a big deal. People are like, once you get into a business, it's easy to start one, harder to scale it, right? And I was
Yes.
talking to somebody on my podcast before, where it's like, that's the idea, right? Is it's hard to start one, or it's easy to start one, hard to scale, but it's hard to do just one. It's easier to have more than one business at a time. So it's this paradox, and franchising that model kind of relieves that paradox.
It's actually, I mean, if you open up 5 in one area,
yeah,
your labor's down now if you do it correctly, right?
Right.
You're
Oh, yeah.
pulling employees from one store to go to another store,
yeah,
right? And you're
Yeah.
having a general manager and then assistant managers per store.
Yep.
yeah,
These stores are running on 10 to 15 total employees on payroll.
Right.
So a shift lead to a Taco Bell is the same as a manager to us, right? Dude, how about just do one general manager and then a shift lead / assistant manager per store, and boom, your labor costs are even lower because there's
Yeah.
just less going on. So a lot of these groups, like the average person is buying 4 stores.
yeah.
That's lowering their cost of good or their cost of labor even further, which
Right.
is really cool.
And how can you do that as a normal business owner, right? Like that's really hard to do. I want to
Yeah.
start 4 of my business at the same time. That you just do one, right?
Yeah.
And then you take your time. But now you can do 4 at the same time, and that's pretty intense, right? And so when somebody buys it, we're talking about like onboarding, right? Like when somebody comes in there, what is that process like, Wade?
Well, and that was the difficult thing for me to figure out because Bennett he bought into Dirty Dough when Tyler Peary had already opened it and was working with him. And so really Vineyard was kind of the first store that this team had opened. And so we were developing that and we wanted to see what does that look like to actually get one of these open and then to go do it for 5 stores, And so essentially what we did is we built out a checklist and we wanted to have a complete turnkey system so the franchisees can come in and get a store open and know exactly what to do. One of the hardest parts of it all is just knowing what to do. A lot of our franchisees have the capability, they have the experience, they have the know-how. It's just channeling that into going out and getting it done the right way. So what we did is we built what's called the Dirty Dough admin portal. That's where the franchisees are going to be ordering their cookie dough, their toppings, their drizzles, their packaging. It's kind of a one-stop shop for everything that happens between corporate and between the franchisee. It's a centralized location. Part of that is on there will be a tab called My Franchise, and there will be a sub tab called the Build Out Checklist that has around 120 steps on it. And on each step, there's a description of what the step is, a how-to video, action link. So, for example, if they need to sign a document and upload it, there's an upload document with the document they need to sign. If it's a fee, they can pay the fee through there with a credit card or ACH. If it's just a simple checkbox of, hey, I've completed this, then they can just click a checkbox. Each time they complete one of those items, it gets sent to someone on the corporate team, the appropriate person that would be dealing with it, for them to review it and either say, yes, you did it correctly, or no, you didn't do it correctly. And what that provides us is a centralized location for all of their progress and information. So everyone on the franchisee team and everyone on the corporate team knows exactly what progress has been made, and it just makes it flow way easier. But what that also enables us to do is get the franchisees in touch with the necessary third-party vendors that we use. For example, most locations are going to want to use a laundry service to clean the mop heads and the aprons and the rags. Most franchisees are going to want to get connected with a security camera service or with our POS system, Toast. And rather than them having to go out and stumble in the dark and try and figure that out on their own, we have all of the contact information there. We have all the people they need to reach out to, the process of how to get that done. And it just makes it go so much smoother and easier. So the build out process on these, we're going to get it to the point where someone could literally sit at their desk in California and open a franchise in Ohio, because we have enough third-party vendors where if they actually wanted to, they could just have third-party vendors go out and do all of their work as far as starting their store. We're not quite there yet, but it'll get there. It's getting pretty sweet. And we're going to develop a checklist for after they've opened the store, as far as getting the store up to speed and where it needs to be quality-wise. But what that's going to enable us to do is just scale. We're going to grow incredibly quickly because now we've enabled the franchisees to go out and get it done themselves. They can go out and use those checklists to get the store open and then get the store up to where it needs to be as far as what it's producing.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of people, they're like, okay, well, I know how to run a business. How do you get permits? And I'm like, I don't know. Go to Wade's checklist. You know what I mean? But it's like, those are the questions that you, like, if you've never been in food, you just don't know what to ask. Like, you have to have a sanitation bucket somewhere, right? And it's like, here's the game plan for the franchise, but we want to say, here's the game plan and every piece to resolve that. And Wade also built it. I mean, he's done an incredible job on the admin portal. We also have data analytics built into it. So it's predictive ordering. How many cookies do you need to order based on what the rotation is? What is the combination of all of that? So again, it's like, here's what is recommended to order. And based on that many cookies, we recommend you ordering this amount of toppings and this amount of drizzles.
Yeah.
So just really trying to make, I mean, the goal's always been the world's simplest food franchise model.
Yeah.
And man, if we're not there, we're getting pretty damn close. It's going.
Yeah.
I would say one of the biggest criticisms, or I wouldn't even necessarily a criticism, probably one of the biggest questions the franchisees have, or really anyone has on our model is, well, that sounds amazing to be able to have 3 employees in the store versus 12. That sounds amazing to have half the space. I mean, the profitability, this all sounds too good to be true. And then they'll say, oh, but how do you know how much cookie dough that you need? Because what if you order too little? What if you order too much?
Right.
Too much, you're wasting it. Too little, you're not selling anything. And so what we did is we hired a third-party analytics company. They specialize in analyzing data. And so what they'll be able to do is link into everybody's POS system to track which cookies are selling and which are not. They can get it all the way down to what times during the day are cookies selling, what days of the week, what holidays do better, what external factors, like is there a game, nearby, and what does that do? A college football game, does it increase sales or not? And they'll even be able to get it all the way down to the cookie dough bases themselves. So they'll be able to look at chocolate cookie dough, sugar cookie dough, brown sugar, and peanut butter cookie dough. On average, how many do they each sell? Yeah. And then they'll be able to give the franchisees extremely accurate. The way that the data analytics company put it is scary accurate.
They do get scary, bro.
They really do.
That data.
The statistics don't lie. And so they'll be able to dial it in to the point where the franchisees will know how much they should order. And they should always be ordering just, as a precaution, 10, 15% extra. Because the beautiful thing of what they can do with that And what we've noticed as we've opened these stores is when people come in for catering orders,
Mhm.
they really don't care what cookies they're getting. So if you have leftover cookies, you use that for your catering,
Mhm.
because then it doesn't deplete your current inventory. And so if someone comes in and says, I want 500 cookies, which has happened several times so far.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
bro? That's wild.
We'll have people come in and say, I want 300, 400, 500 cookies. And that would honestly deplete a huge part of our inventory. But because I had leftover cookies from the week before, we can use those leftovers and just do an assortment. And now it hasn't depleted our inventory.
Now,
So
if it doesn't, I mean, because we can't use that, so what happens if we do too much, even with data analytics,
Right.
or too little? Well, we do our rotations on Friday. So that means
Yeah.
you'll never go in a weekend without running out of cookies. Will you run out of cookie maybe on a Wednesday? Yeah, that'll happen. But that's why we do 4 permanent and 4 rotations.
Yeah.
So even if you ran out of 1 or 2, I mean, you still have 6 cookies.
Oh, yeah.
Now, on Friday, just like the competition goes, you go to their rotation, like, oh, new rotation today. You'll see last week's rotation. You can always just keep your cookies out. And instead of selling 8 for the first few days, you're actually selling 10.
Yeah.
And then we also do mobile franchising, which I know we need to wrap up here, but mobile franchising is like, you can't
This is
find
sick.
somebody better than Jill as far as mobile franchise. She invented the model worldwide. Like, mobile franchising didn't exist before Jill.
Yeah.
And she went through a lot of attorneys and like, no, franchising is location based. She's like, no, I want to make it event based. And man, she blew it up.
Yeah.
So talking about lowering the barrier of entry, mobile franchise it, I'm saying Dirty Dough's a brick and mortar, all in franchise fee, equipment, build out, tech package, all that, around 200, low 200s. When you add on inventory, maybe it's, 230,000.
Yeah.
Well, mobile's less than half of that.
Dude. Seriously.
And then what are your fixed costs? You don't even have a lease payment anymore,
No,
right?
dude.
You need some
It's a
freezer
cash
space.
cow, bro.
And then you hit up these events, and I went to one when BYU played USC,
Uh-huh.
and there was a cookie trailer. They sold these mini, slightly burnt, only chocolate chip cookies, and they were selling them for the price of what we would charge. It weighed 4.2, the same weight as 4.2 of our cookies. So basically a $4. They're selling for $25.
Absolutely.
I'm like,
and people were.
I couldn't even try these cookies because there was 2 trailers, lines so long that I'm like, I'm gonna miss the game. Well, I found them another day and I went and asked them their numbers, right? And they're like, yeah, we do about 11,500 per trailer. That night we sold out in under 3 hours and went home. I'm like, what?
3 hours of work and you went home.
They worked 3 hours and sold $23,000 between the 2
Get the
trailers.
freak out of
Then
here.
they left.
Bro.
Somebody
Food
else just
trucks
told
are
me.
the bomb,
Somebody just told me
dude.
the Minnesota State Fair, they do $2 to $3 million.
Yeah, the
cookie
Iowa
sales in 10 days.
The Iowa State Fair.
I'm like, get out.
The
Yeah.
Iowa State Fair probably does more than that, bro. I remember going to the Iowa State Fair as a little kid and getting 5-gallon buckets of that crap.
Yeah.
And they were just, bro. And it's the fair. It's like an airport. You can charge whatever the hell you want.
Yeah. So we do mobile franchising as well. So it's a very good pair. Like, buy 5, buy an area of 5 and buy a mobile franchise that you're hitting up all of those events. And then that also helps with inventory as well, right? Throw whatever inventory, you could maybe err a little bit more on over ordering because the mobile one,
will just take whatever you get.
But yeah, the mobile's pretty cool.
So
that's even, again, going back to the entrepreneurship. If somebody just wants to buy a mobile franchise, that's a great business to run to kind of get started. It's a lot. It's like I said, you can lease this trailer with like almost nothing down, and just like boom, you have a trailer that you can take around. And you can do lots of good sales in that thing.
That's insane. So sum it up for us, Bennett. What do we need to do? Like, what? How do we move on from here? Like, what do you want us to do?
For Dirty Dough, go to our website, man. Head of Dalton.
That's right.
No, we have Dalton's head of sales, and we hired him thinking, man, are we going to give Dalton enough work? And now 35 stores later,
my gosh.
I can't.
35 stores
and now we have 4 salespeople, and we're trying to hire another one, and that Dalton's managing.
Exactly.
Dude, it's bananas.
So he went from a salesperson to a sales manager over 4, now almost 5 people in less than 2 months.
That's right.
Month
dude,
and a half. But yeah, you can apply on the website, dirtydough.com, dirtydoughcookies.com as well. And then there's a franchising button or reaching out directly to Dalton. But and then we kind of take you through all the steps. I mean, really the biggest issue we're having right now is territory.
Yeah.
Like, hey, here's the territories. They're going really quick because it's hard to find a model that we've done. And I think it's because it's hard. We just went full into this. Like, this is gonna work. We have faith in this. Let's get top tier talent. Let's get the production. Let's get the waste. Let's get everything perfectly and spare no expense. Because if we could make this work, man, what kind of change can we have in the world on the mental health level, on building these wellness centers, on lowering the barrier of entrepreneurship, providing more jobs.
Mhm.
Like that's the vision of Dirty Dough.
Mhm.
And we're just using cookies to get there because cookies are fun, they're profitable, they're
They're
good,
Comfort food, man.
they're
Yeah,
comfort
They're
food,
comfort
right?
food. Yeah.
But again, that's not what we're after at all. But cookies are just helping us get there.
Amen. Well, hey, thank you guys so much for joining me.
Yeah.
I know you got to go.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Dalton.
it.
Thanks so much.
See ya.